So you started learning at the age of 3. Is there anything you remember from that time?
Well, first of all, I don't think I started actually learning at the age of 3. I don't think I really had a say in when I actually started learning. You're in a music home, you're in a musician's home, you're in a drummer's house, and he happens to be your father. From the day you're brought in from the nursing home where you were born, you really are inducted. You know, you don't have a choice. And so it was the same with me. What happened with me was when I was brought home after, I think the second day after I was born, and they hadn't yet chosen a name for me. So it was baby Qureshi. That's our family name, Qureshi. So could have been male, female, whatever. They weren't sure, you know. Anyway, so even nowadays I sit in an airplane in a seat and a stewardess comes from here and says, "Can I get you something, ma'am?" It's got something to do with it. I don't know. I was brought home, handed up to my dad in his arm. And the tradition was, okay, the father is supposed to recite a prayer in the baby's ear, welcoming the baby and put in some good words, you know. So he takes me in his arm, puts his lips to my ear, and recites rhythms. He did dhagatete, dhagatete, kirdatete, and my mother was livid. She said, "What are you doing? You're supposed to say, you know, prayers, not these rhythms." And he said, "But these are my prayers. This is how I pray." He said, "I am the worshipper of Goddess Saraswati, Lord Ganesha. And this is a devout Muslim talking. And this is the knowledge or vidya I got from my teachers. And I want to pass it on to my son. He is going to do exactly this. So why not start him early and give him these prayers?" So that's what I mean when I say inducted already. You know, I had no say in it, like it or not. You're not going to hear, you know, Lambodara Lakumi Karamba Sutta, whatever. You're going to actually hear Dha Din Din Na, and like it or not. So from there on, I think it was his routine every day to sit for an hour or so or two, singing rhythms in my ear, and the way he held me, this ear was closed, so it stayed in. So anyway, so I sang, those went in. So by the time I was 3, when I could actually reach the tabla and had hands slightly bigger to get onto the tabla, I already had all this information in my head and this big jumble, confusion, you know, which I had really no idea what to do with. And so that's when the tabla was put in front of me, and I started to hit it. And at that point, my father decided to use reverse psychology. So now instead of putting rhythms in my ear, he just disappeared. It's like, okay, no more learning or hearing those nice little things which put me to sleep. None of that. I was suddenly having to fend for myself. And I guess his whole plan was not to, you know, overdose me with the stuff so I would just go away and not want it. It was more like giving me a little taste of it, and then he pulled back to see what I was going to do with it. And at that age, I was being put on a spot to make a decision, to commit to this or, you know, whatever. And so I guess my what should I say, the feelings or my instinct brought me to commit to it. And I started playing with it. And if I didn't have the tabla, I would steal my mother's pots and turn them around and play. Once or twice I did it with the food in it. So, I mean, you know what that did. So anyway, that's how it all began. At the age of 3 till when I was 7, I rarely saw my dad. You know, I'm sure he was lurking about, looking to see what I was doing, whether I was interested or not. But it was mostly his students who would occasionally show me, or do this or do that. And they would speak something and I would already know it because it was already here. And then it was a matter of just putting onto the drum. So it started becoming easy. But once I was about 7 years old, and I had already started doing school concerts, playing in my school things, you know, inauguration day, this day, that day. So on one of those occasions, he came to the school to hear me play. And I played, and that was done. And after that, went home, and at dinner, he says to me, "Do you want to study this seriously?" And, you know, I jumped at it because this meant being with him and having him there. So I said, "Yes, of course." So he said, "Okay, tomorrow we'll start." So that was a very exciting night for me, except for it ended early. He woke me up at 3 a.m. I was 7 years old, and so when everybody slept and it was quiet, no phones ringing, no nothing, and we sat like this in our veranda and spoke rhythms and talked about the masters, talked about this great tradition and, you know, where it came from and what it represented and the importance of it and the reverence that it requires, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so for the next few years, that became the routine.